Sometimes life gives you the chance to face feelings you never expected at times you never saw coming. Some things there's no preparation for, not with your age or your past experiences. This story, well, it's about one of those moments for me. I'm 62. Life has taught me a lot, but it's taken just as much. Drew, he was the love of my life. He was full of life, a pilot, flying was his passion. And for me, it was this endless worry. One day, that worry became my reality. I lost him in a crash 10 years ago. Since then, I've been alone. The only thing left from Drew is our son, Derek. He's 36 now, a successful engineer, my pride and joy. But sometimes he gets so caught up in his own life, I feel like a shadow in my own home. Derek's best friend, Brendan, he's 38. The two of them have been inseparable for years. Brendan's a pilot too, just like Drew. Maybe that's why, for Derek, Brendan was more than just a friend, he felt like a piece of his dad. I'd gotten used to Brendan coming by the house often. He's cheerful, kind, always helpful. His friendship with Derek was something else. Even when Derek was out of town, Brendan was always there for me. But when Derek told me he'd be out of town for a week last month, I didn't know that week would be a turning point in my life. If you want to be one of the first to discover these fascinating secrets, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Watch the whole video because something at the end is going to totally surprise you. That week, when Derek was out of town, I ended up alone with Brendan, something I hadn't planned on. It was late afternoon, and I was coming back from the grocery store. I had the bags in my hands, but I couldn't find my keys. I kept digging through my purse, checking my pockets, but nothing. It was like the keys had just vanished into thin air. Just then, Brendan's car turned the corner and pulled up in front of me. He stuck his head out the window, that familiar warm smile on his face. "Lily, everything okay?" he asked. "I think I've lost my keys," I said, feeling helpless. "There's no spare inside either. I have no idea what to do." Brendan jumped out of the car. "We'll figure it out," he said confidently. He called a locksmith, and within minutes had someone on the way to get the door open. "You remind me of Drew," I said while we waited outside. "He used to handle everything so quickly, like you." Brendan looked a little embarrassed, but at the same time, there was a hint of pride on his face. I could see it in his eyes. Once the door was open, I wanted to thank him. "How about a coffee?" "I owe you for running around like this," I said. We went inside. Brendan sat down casually at the kitchen table. Until then, he'd always spent time at our house with Derek, but this time it was just the two of us. While I prepared the coffee, we started chatting. Brendan's life had always intrigued me. Being a pilot like Drew fascinated me, but also scared me a little. I knew the dangers of that profession and the loneliness that came with it, but his story was a little different. "I was married once," he said, taking a sip of his coffee, "but it didn't work out. We had really different lives. We loved each other, but our lives just didn't match. It's been 4 years since we got divorced." He kept his voice steady, but there was a deep sadness in it. He must have noticed me looking at him with pity because he quickly added, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm more balanced now. I've thrown myself into my work, and everything in my life is in its place." That honesty hit me. Seeing both Brendan's strong and emotional sides at once made me respect him even more. After Drew, my perspective on men had changed. It was rare to see someone strong but also able to express their feelings. "My son Derek never really thought about getting married," I said with a small smile. "Seems like he got way too caught up in his career." Brendan grinned lightly and said, "I believe Derek will meet someone special. It's just a matter of time." Our conversation deepened, and it felt like we had known each other for years. Sure, we talked before, but never this openly. We talked about Drew, Derek, even Brendan's childhood. At one point, I shared the story of when I first met Drew, and Brendan listened intently. "You're so lucky to have known someone like Drew," he said. His eyes went distant for a moment, then he added, "But I can't even imagine the pain you must have felt the day you lost Drew. I've always thought about how strong you must be to get through something like that." In that moment, I'd never felt Brendan's sincerity more clearly. For years, whenever Drew's name came up, I'd quickly change the subject, but his words brought back a warmth from somewhere deep inside me. We talked for hours, losing track of time. Just before Brendan was about to leave, he paused by the door, turned around, and slowly walked back to me, opening his arms gently to give me a hug. "Really, thank you so much, Lily J," he said, his voice full of warmth and his smile so sincere that it calmed me. For a moment, I didn't know what to do, but then I instinctively hugged him back. As our bodies came closer, the atmosphere between us shifted. It felt like time froze for a moment during that hug. What I felt was so powerful words couldn't describe it. There was electricity, a pull, a deep unease, but at the same time, a comfort. The warmth I felt was burning through me, but it also wrapped around my soul. It felt like a connection I'd been searching for, like something had been missing all these years, and now it was finally complete. Brendan must have felt it too, the strange but intense sensation between us deepening. The hug, he pulled me a little closer. The weight of the moment grew stronger with each passing second. Our heartbeats sped up, our breath came short for a second. Our eyes met, but neither of us said a word. The hug was so intense and meaningful there was no need for words, but the electricity between us was beyond everything, resonating in both of our bodies. Finally, he slowly pulled away and stepped back, but his eyes still held that loaded look. "Good night, Lily," he said, the tremor of emotion still lingering in his voice. I just nodded in response, my heart still racing. As the door closed behind him, I felt this strange emptiness inside me mixed with a sense of unease. I couldn't fully grasp the meaning of that hug yet, but the impact of that moment only seemed to grow with each passing minute. A few days passed, but Brendan's hug, and that brief connection in his eyes still echoed in my mind. I was trying to face the mixed feelings in my heart, setting aside the age difference and the responsibilities I had toward my family and surroundings. That brief moment we shared seemed to fill the gaps in time, as if it had changed something. Now everything, every moment, seemed to carry a piece of Brendan in it, and strangely, every day my thoughts of him kept growing. No matter how much I tried to think logically, it was getting harder to ignore what I felt. One evening, I got a call from Derek. He told me he was going on a work trip for a week, and that his tasks were taking longer than expected. "I'm going to be gone another week. I really didn't want to leave you alone, but my work's piling up," he said. Normally, Derek being gone this long would upset me, making me feel even lonelier, but at that moment, I didn't feel empty. In some strange way, there was a sense of peace inside me, like something was going right, though I couldn't figure out exactly what. I just knew something was changing, and everything seemed to be falling into place. A few days later, I was heading out of the house in my car, but as I was about to turn out of the street, my car suddenly stopped. The engine was dead, everything was just still. I started thinking about what to do, but soon enough, I felt helpless. My car refused to move right there on this street. What was I supposed to do? The only person that came to mind was Brendan. "Brendan, can you help me? My car broke down, and I can't do anything here. You know Derek's out of town, and I'm just not sure what to do," I said, my voice tinged with sadness, but there was also a glimmer of hope. There was a pause for a moment, then I heard Brendan's voice, calm and reassuring. "Let me help, Lily. My flights got cancelled, so I can come right over. Don't worry, I'll take care of it." When Brendan arrived, I felt a different kind of way. As he inspected the car, he noticed how oily everything was, and with a grin, he said, "Looks like there's quite a bit of work here." In that moment, Brendan's calmness and confidence made me feel really safe. As Brendan started fixing the car, I stepped outside and watched him work. My eyes followed his every move as he expertly handled the tools, his hands balancing strength and grace. Every step, every movement was like a dance, so natural and smooth. Brendan's composure made me admire him even more. I'd been alone for years, but now I could feel that something was changing. Every moment, every sound, every glance was resonating in my heart. In that moment, I realized just how attractive a guy trying to fix a car could be, and how extraordinary the things he was doing were. As my eyes slipped away from his, I couldn't stop a smile from creeping onto my face. When Brendan finished his final touches on the car, he shook his hands lightly and turned toward me with a smile. "Everything's good, right?" he asked, his voice calm, though there was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. At that moment, I realized that I needed to do more than just thank him. "Brendan, I really appreciate it," I said, but there was something else bubbling inside me. "But after all this help and you're covered in oil, we don't need to go home. You can relax, maybe take a shower, right?" Brendan tilted his head slightly, looking at me with surprise. "I mean, yeah, I'm a bit covered in oil," he said with a smile, "but you know, after all this work, a little relaxation might be nice." I felt a sense of relief inside. In that moment, I thought letting him come inside wouldn't be wrong at all, and actually, I wanted to be a bit closer to him too. "Okay then," I said, taking another step. "The shower is not too far from here. Come on, let me show you." We went inside together, and I immediately showed him the bathroom. We were standing so close that I could feel his body heat affecting me. Brendan's every move, every smile was making me feel something different. Suddenly, the sparks inside me flared up even more. It was so hard to hold back that even as I was about to send him to the bathroom, I couldn't help but feel excited. While Brendan was in the shower, I moved to the kitchen and started preparing dinner. My mind was racing with thoughts, but at the same time, I could feel how much space Brendan was taking up around me with every move I made. As I quickly prepared the food, I was thinking about how to thank him while also becoming more aware of the tension between us. While cooking, my emotions suddenly took over. I couldn't stop myself, so I went a little overboard. I decided to open a few bottles of wine. Tonight, everything felt a little different. Opening wine wasn't something I was really familiar with, but something inside me was pushing me to do it. As I carefully selected my wine glasses, I tried to make the food I had prepared even better. In that moment, while waiting for Brendan to step out of the bathroom, I could feel the pleasure of the moment. It was such a complex mix of emotions. I felt like I was losing myself, yet at the same time, I was in control. When Brendan finished his shower and came into the room, he looked a little pale but very calm. His hair was wet and he looked relaxed, his clothes casual and natural. The ease in his eyes pulled me in even more. "It smells really good in here," he said, walking toward the table holding a towel. "You really went all out." "Thank you, Lily." I felt like this wasn't temporary, but that it would last forever. We were lost in the magic of kissing. Every touch, every breath brought us even closer. We moved down the hallway, undressing as we went, our breath shallow, heading toward the bedroom. Each step increased the desire we felt for each other. When we reached the bedroom, Brendan pulled me toward him, and once again our lips met. It was done now, and we were completely each other's. In that moment, the rest of the world ceased to exist. It was just Brendan and me. His touch was taking me to another world. Every touch, every kiss only made us more connected. The night passed in each other's arms. Before I fell asleep, I looked into Brendan's eyes and saw that he felt the same way about me. When I woke up in the morning, Brendan was still sleeping next to me. The first rays of the sun were slipping into the room and falling on his face. In that moment, I felt like something had changed. I wasn't alone anymore. Brendan had become my light, my hope. Waking up next to him gave me so much peace. Brendan's eyes slowly opened, and when he saw me, a smile spread across his face. "Good morning, Lily," he said, his voice soft and full of love. "Good morning, Brendan," I replied, smiling. "Last night was amazing." Brendan pulled me closer, and we kissed again. In that moment, in each other's arms, I felt like everything was exactly where it needed to be. Being next to each other now gave us a fresh start, but something was still unclear. I saw a brief hesitation in Brendan's eyes. "Lily," he said, his voice a little more serious, "is this just one night, or is there more to it?" My heart was racing. I didn't know the answer to that question either. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wanted to be with Brendan. "Brendan," I said, a hint of vulnerability in my voice, "this is just the beginning. I want to discover what we can experience together." Brendan smiled and held me tighter. "I want to be with you, Lily. I want to see what we can explore together." In that moment, I could feel how bright our future could be. But still, we didn't know what would come next. All we knew was that we wanted to be together, and that was enough. If you've made it this far, I know my story has really hit you deep. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss any of it. Don't forget to hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story. I'm dying to hear your thoughts, so let's chat in the comments. Your support means the world to me.